Hi, Iffy, and welcome to Talking Allergies. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks so much, Grace, for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So, Iffy, could you tell me a little bit about your allergies story?
Yeah, sure. So, my allergies story started when I was 2 years old. So, when I was two, Mum says that she was about to go out to a friend's place or some sort of outing, and just being sort of in a rush, she fed me egg, and I think that was the first time that I'd been exposed to, maybe cooked egg as a standalone, and said that I had vomited and I broke out in some sort of hives. And they took me to the doctor and sort of said, maybe she has an egg allergy. But for me, being two, I've always just known myself as having an egg allergy, just something to avoid. So that's been my journey, from very young, having egg allergy. I did also have asthma from childhood, but it wasn't really something that bothered me as such. It was more as an adult as that evolved, that it's been a bit more, at times, sometimes tricky for me to manage certain times of the year. And then I also have, because of the asthma, I have hay fever, pollen allergies. So because of that, I also during springtime sort of struggle with that. But also I have oral allergy syndrome as well, so it's related to the pollen allergies. And then eczema as well, which has gotten a little bit more better since moving to Melbourne. So when I was living interstate in a more colder environment, I did struggle with that. So a whole range of different allergies.
Have your allergies evolved over time from when you first found out to now?
Yeah, definitely. I think my egg allergy probably pretty consistent. I don't think it's maybe not too much. Like maybe I have a little bit of asthma, very small amount, but it's not enough, I would say, to probably be considered as anaphylactic. I've been able to just manage with, antihistamines at this point in time. So that hasn't progressed too much necessarily. I think what's progressed for me mostly has been my asthma. So that's become a bit more of an issue for me in springtime. So I'm now on immunotherapy just to reduce my response to, the pollen allergies. And what's sort of changed a bit more is my oral allergy syndrome. So before, I could a bit more comfortably eat certain fruits and vegetables raw. There's always some things I've always been a bit, I get a bit of symptoms, like strawberries and berries, my favorite fruits. I used to be able to have them, fresh, but now I just find that I have to heat treat them. So just chuck them in the microwave when I'm making my porridge and have everything cooked, because I just find that they give me just some, itchy sort of throat. It's not anaphylactic, it's just more around my mouth, which is standard sort of oral allergy symptoms. So definitely more my pollen and asthma has sort of evolved, I think, more than anything.
With your oral allergy syndrome, how did you find that out?
Yes, that's a really good question. So I just noted when I'd eat certain foods, like salad was fine, but things like carrot, I'd eat it, and I just find I'd get a bit itchy, and I'm like, this is really interesting. And so I noticed with certain foods, I just found myself a little bit itchy in the throat, but it wouldn't progress that much. And also watermelon. And so I know this sounds really bad, and I'm not in any way promoting this, but I just did my own little research and noted that there were other people out there that said that, when they ate that fruit or vegetable fresh, they had symptoms. But then when I'd eat like, sauces that, the carrot had been cooked in, I wouldn't have any issue. And so when I went to the allergist, quite a few years later, they sort of confirmed the same, that, yeah, it was likely to be oral allergy syndrome. And it's something that probably was more obvious to me as an adult. It wasn't something that I experienced really maybe when I was younger, and maybe subtly over the years just got a bit worse with to the extent now that everything has to be really cooked, I think, for me.
As an adult with allergies, how do you manage your day-to-day life?
Yeah, so Yeah, that's a really good question. So I live alone, and so I do, have to be on top of my medication. So that means making sure I take my preventer medications, have my the Ventolin as well. So if there's any, flare-ups of my asthma, making sure I take my immunotherapy as well, having antihistamines and also my EpiPens just in case. So it's a lot of like medication management and making sure I'm taking them, my medications in the morning and night, but also being aware of your own symptoms as well. So, checking in with yourself, making sure I'm seeing my GP regularly, specialist. It's also not just the medication aspect, but it's also even shopping, at that level, making, obviously very common to me with allergies, making sure all the label reading and all that takes time. And, obviously cooking for myself and things like that. I think the social aspect is a bit that I find a bit challenging. So, which is, going out for food and things like that. I think something I used to historically really enjoy, but now this is just an area that I have to sort of, I guess sort of maybe expose myself a little bit more again, just to feel a bit more comfortable. So I think as an adult, what I guess changes is that you have to sort of manage things for yourself around medication, seeing GP specialists, and obviously food label reading, being aware of your own body, of your symptoms and things like that, and then managing more challenging situations around whether it's travel or eating out. Workplaces and those sorts of things. So it's quite a lot to manage sometimes on your own, and some days are better than others, I find. And some seasons for me, like, spring is a bit more of a tricky season for me than maybe other times of the year.
Thank you so much for sharing, and it does definitely have an impact on socialization and feeling like you can actually go out with all of your medications and all of your precautions taken too.
Yeah, that's right. And I think sometimes maybe, when you have, one incident that maybe, I think in my case that particular incident that was a bit difficult for me, was maybe the people around me probably didn't respond in the way that maybe was as supportive. I did have one person that was so supportive, but I'm not blaming them. I think they were in shock, and sometimes I do appreciate when people are in shock. They're not always their best selves because they're under stress as well. Seeing their colleague, distressed, and so ever since then, I found it a bit difficult because maybe I have this fear in the back of my mind that if I have an incident, are people going to be there for me, or are they going to talk about me? Even though I know people won't do that, I think that's what sometimes stops me is maybe this fear of not having control over my situation. So that's, I guess, a bit of a struggle for me in terms of eating out. I still go out, I still socialize, but I really prefer to go to places that I know the menu a bit more, which is fine. And maybe for me, it's about going there, building up my experience again and comfortability, and then I feel more comfortable trying new places.
There's definitely a topic of discussion saying, are you okay with this place, or does this place make you feel okay? It's so lovely when someone does actually care.
Yeah, that's right. And I found some, really good, some of my friends are really good about it now, where they're like, look, if we want to go out and actually have a meal, how about you choose the place that you feel comfortable with as well, which is really helpful. And I don't want to always take over. I'm always mindful of, it's a hard one because I do understand people with allergies have unique needs, and, it is important that the places suit them. But I'm always mindful that I don't want to make things about me. It's that fine line, so, and maybe in that case is that maybe trying different non-food activities as well. Sometimes I just want to not think about that too much, and sometimes just doing things that are not related to food, like going for a walk and coffee. And because for me, that's not maybe so much of a risk, going out and getting a coffee. So sometimes I like to do those things just so I can just not think too much about my allergies as such as well.
As an adult with allergies, how would you say that the impact has been on your life?
Yeah. So when I was younger, it's really interesting. So when I was younger, I had a number of reactions, just because I don't you don't always know what's in food and things like that as well. And because I don't at this present time have a history of anaphylaxis, some of my reactions, I'm surprised how I managed them. I didn't even have medication on board because I'm probably now in my late 30s. I think the awareness probably of my family at that time is probably different to now. So I was probably a bit more laissez-faire, very relaxed. And then I think in my early 20s, before that incident at my one of my previous workplaces, I was pretty similar, like laissez-faire. I'm like, I'd still obviously ask if something's got egg. I'm not saying, by the way, I'm not saying this is the approach to go by, but I was a bit more open to going to pretty much anywhere to eat. And then after that incident, I think I've been a little bit more cautious. So I think as an adult, I've had both, really positive experiences, and also just, I think now where I'm at in my life, it can sometimes be another burden, to be perfectly honest, because you have to think about, when you're shopping, what you're buying. You see these new products and then you go have a look at it and then you go, I actually can't have that. Or, you see on Facebook or social media, these new cafes are coming out, and sometimes those places may be a bit too risky because of, a lot of their items may have egg, or cross-contamination is a bit higher risk at this particular place. So there's a lot more you think about, in terms of when you go out, if you want to go traveling. But also another area for me is I'm wanting to start to date again as well. So even, the cross-contamination, and explaining things to them as well, that person that you have, an allergy. So I think it's had a significant impact for me more recently, just because it's been on my mind. I think in terms of just sometimes how safe I feel in the world, I think, yeah.
Has the way that you manage allergies changed from when you were a child to as an adult?
Yep, definitely. When I was young, I didn't really carry like antihistamines. Every now and then I'd take them, but if I had a reaction, I'd just wait for it to pass through, because I never had any breathing constriction. It was just more hives, vomiting. I think just TMI, once I'd vomited, I was fine, but it took hours. I'd get immediate reaction and then I'd have this really delayed, like, wait. And so then, so for me, I would, I didn't necessarily take consistent medication. I didn't have puffers at that time. So whereas now, I take, a lot more medications every day just to manage, especially now with my asthma. When I go out in spring, I have to look at the pollen count. That requires a negotiation with work as well. When I'm doing exercise, most of the time I personally don't need to take Ventolin. It's only if I'm doing dancing that, something a bit more vigorous, I have to. So they're sort of the things that I have to be mindful. Everything has to be cooked now, so that takes a bit more time for me to prepare meals. So it's just these things. I think that it's more time, and I think more thinking that, the brain space of just coordinating my day to day in terms of medication, cooking, prepping things. It just takes a bit more brain space and time.
Definitely. Has anyone helped you with your allergy life throughout the years?
Yeah, so my probably my mum was my biggest champion growing up, and now as an adult as well. My dad probably definitely understood the egg allergies, but probably doesn't really understand my oral allergy syndrome as much. And my sisters have been really supportive as well in terms of my allergies, especially as an adult now that I'm in this space where I'm still just trying to figure out things. So they've been really supportive of me. And in particular, I think, when we're having social gatherings, and just even though they know I have an egg allergy, just still reinforcing that, because sometimes they might buy new food products that they want to try out, just making sure, especially with baked goods, if they're making it, just making sure that it's hasn't got egg and things like that. But also when I'm having to stay at home a bit more over spring, just that understanding as well. They've been really supportive, and good friends have been really good. And it's also in some way maybe some of the benefit, maybe if I have to look at maybe some of not saying benefits, maybe that's not the right word. Maybe one good thing that's come out of it is actually help me to know who is a good friend to me and not, because I think the people who understand you want to be around them more, and the people who see you as a burden or don't take it seriously or think you're exaggerating, they're the kind of people I don't want to don't want to be as close to, or don't want to spend as much time with. I know this sounds a bit polarizing, but this is just my own personal experience anyway.
It's definitely when someone makes you feel welcomed and cared for, it's definitely a sign of really, really lovely friendship and care too.
Yeah, that's right. And when they sort of check in on you and say, hey, I know you're, your asthma hasn't been really good, how you going? Or, I think my last reaction prior to this was maybe a number of years ago, but just having friends can go, look, are you okay? I can take you home. Those, small things really, make you feel seen and know that people really care about your well-being and your health. So, it's really important, I think, to be surrounded by friends, family, supportive workplaces as well.
It really makes a difference.
Yeah, that's right.
Is there something that you've learnt about living with allergies that you would like someone without allergies to know?
Yeah, I think what I would say is that sometimes allergies can be, it is in some ways an invisible condition, Yes, I do appreciate, allergies. Obviously there's a whole gamut of what allergies is, and yes, there has been times where it's been visible when I've had an eczema flare up, and that has been sometimes difficult in terms of socialization when it's been really bad, and you feel very self-conscious. But then also at the same time, and I do appreciate a lot of people with allergies have a mix of different, not just eczema, they might also have asthma and food allergies. But then also, because I look outwardly in quotations healthy, sometimes people don't, realize the accommodations that you, even just to get to a place, all the medications that you take, for me anyway, even in asthma season, just to get by, or all the things that you have to consider when you are going out and eating out. It's not as simple as just going there. Sometimes, it means calling up ahead of time, reviewing the menu, thinking about, is this a good place for you to go, or do you want to suggest, something else? And sometimes, with some certain people, it may you may not feel as comfortable doing it, but I still encourage people to still do that and advocate for themselves. But one thing I think I've learned is the importance of advocacy, really advocating for yourself, having really supportive family, friends around you, and sometimes being okay to say no. Like if you've looked into something really clearly, you go, look, this place is just not something I feel comfortable with. It's actually okay. It doesn't mean that you're saying no to eating out, that it just could be that particular place may not be something that you feel comfortable doing. So I think knowing when to say no, and also finding consumer organisations like Allergy Life that really have a lot of resources, but also support groups, so that consumers, people living with the conditions, or even carers, family members, can come and chat about what it's like to live with allergies, whether it's as a teenager, for your children, or as an adult.
You've definitely touched on quite a lot of areas, and advocating for yourself is something that's really hard to do. Do you have any tips on how to advocate for yourself?
Maybe starting small, you know what I mean? Like, I think maybe when you're even just going out, maybe starting even especially when you're eating out, maybe those are like really good places to start around advocating for yourself. So checking the menu and making sure you're clear about I guess that particular restaurant, their practices, all those sorts of things. I think that's a really good place to start. And then having those conversations with your, obviously with your, your friends, and what you need from them as well. I think just starting more nuclear in that space. And then I think once you build confidence, then you might feel more comfortable talking to, places like your workplaces, if you're going out on dates, all those sort of things. I think starting with your friends, family, eating out can be a good place to start, and then going from there. I think also seeking advice from advocacy organisations. They have really good tips and resources. So, Allergy Life, other allergy organisations, speaking to them about how you would approach, advocating for yourself can be really important. That can be a nice way of, expanding your tools and way of advocating for yourself.
Thank you. Is there anything that you've been proud of despite of having allergies?
Yeah, I think traveling, I haven't done that as much more recently. I think just sort of, I know with, the pandemic just a few years ago, but I think the last time I went overseas was probably before I was having some of these personal sort of struggles. And even though I didn't have I think from memory, I didn't have an allergic reaction, but I really was really present. And a lot of the issues that I had on the trip were nothing to do with allergies. I was able to um, eat a lot of the foods there and really just obviously ask. And even with the language barriers, was able to sort of get by and just stuck with really more sort of simple sort of dishes. So I did go to Sri Lanka and Maldives, and I tended to just have more plain curry and rice. And yeah, I was able to enjoy, and a lot of things that the things that came out on the trip was more the dramas with friends. It wasn't actually the allergies. So so that was good, and it's nice to sort of look back and remember that when I've had hard times, that I've still been able to live a full life. Yes, sometimes the allergies may, some days it feels like it gets in the way, but then some days it doesn't. And in some ways, it's added a bit more meaning to my life as well, because I have a bit more understanding of what it can be like for people with chronic conditions as well. So yeah, I think in some ways it has also helped me to connect with other people maybe that I may not have met in my life if I didn't have allergies.
Is there anything that you would tell your younger self?
Yeah, I think I would tell my younger self to just to continue to try different things. I think, to continue to be brave, try different things. And I wish I would have sought specialist advice a little bit more earlier in my life. I think it wasn't until maybe my 20s, but I wish I had a bit more of a team involved a bit more earlier. I think that would have been really helpful for me. But that would be the main thing, is just to go out there, be cautious still, of course, follow the recommendations as per your GP or specialist. But at the same time, also try new things, as well, and still have fun in your life. And if you are, having struggles, seeing mental health experts that have expertise in allergies, and really, again, that message, around seeking relevant consumer organisations is really important to advocate and support you in your journey.
If there's an adult out there at the moment struggling with allergies, is there anything that you would tell them?
I would tell them that that the challenges for adults, just like children and teenagers, are unique as well, because obviously when you are an adult, sometimes you might be living by yourself, or sometimes you might be living in share homes, and they're all unique circumstances. But also sometimes you interact with workplaces, or universities. You might be going out a little bit more, and you're making a lot of the time decisions yourself. So I think as an adult, again, that message of advocacy is really important. I think that's probably the common thread through. So I think, just knowing yourself, advocating for yourself, being aware really of how to manage your allergies that you're living with, I think would be the main thing for me. Is I think I wish I knew how to advocate for myself when I was younger in the way that I do know now. So that's probably my main message, and really seeking out support services for adults as well. because again, I do feel like there is a little bit of a gap. I think a month ago I was on just a Facebook support group for allergies. It's I think a worldwide one, and someone was saying I would love to have a support group so I could chat to people. So I think there is a little bit of a gap in terms of maybe a lot of adults. This is maybe an assumption, but it feels like we're all kind of doing it alone. So, finding other people that have that lived experience, I think, can be really helpful.
Thank you so much for sharing. Is there anything that you would like to share around your allergy story, or tips or tricks? Anything else that you would like to share?
I think for me, there's probably no other tips or tricks. I think maybe the key point is just if you notice things changing as you become an adult. I do, even in my story, certain allergies, sort of maybe the egg allergy at this point in time, to my knowledge, hasn't maybe shifted as much. But for me, it's been other things that have changed. So just noticing, like, if your allergies are changing as you come into adulthood, really just making sure that you are seeing your GP or specialist, or your team. So just always having those regular checkups and just noticing if things are changing for you. Because you might need your medication or treatment to be reviewed. I think that's probably the main thing that I've the main tip or main thing that I've noticed in my own personal experience.
Thank you so much for sharing your allergy story and tips with other adults living with allergies so much, Iffy.
Oh, no worries. And thanks so much, Grace, for letting me on your podcast and letting me also share my story. Hopefully this is something that can help other people living with allergies, in particular adults, just because, this is the stage I'm at in my life as well. So hopefully it is helpful to other people out there.
Thank you so much, Iffy.